All right, welcome to Divine Disbelief. I am your host, Nathaniel. And gosh, it sure has been an uneventful week, right? Like there's nothing going on. It's been, one of those basic weeks that we get in the middle of May or whatever when climate change is killing us here in Portland. And by the way, I couldn't get the lighting just right, so you're going to have to deal with the fact that it's not entirely just, the best green screen ever. But it's been a great week, so I am going to have a drink in celebration of this great week.
So there you have it, less than 10 minutes, guilty on all three counts. Guilty second-degree murder, guilty third-degree murder, guilty second-degree manslaughter.
And that is right. Former Minnesota, sure, as Susan will say, the land of tiniest pops. I don't remember. Anyways, former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin. Is that it? I don't know how to say his name. I also don't care because fuck that dude. He was found guilty because he murdered an unarmed black man by kneeling on his neck for over 9 minutes. Now, he was guilty of the murder that he committed by committing murder. It's like the murdery thing. Anyways, this was emotional for me, so much so that I went outside of my home here and I like screamed out loud. I was very, very excited. And so much so that there were a group of women out there and I scared them. I think there were like 5 or 6 of them, and they got really scared. The reason that I would be scared, besides being very surprised, is because they were a group of Muslim women. And I ran outside of my house screaming, and I can imagine how terrifying that was. And then I was like, my bad, just excited. And they continued talking about getting the COVID vaccine. And thankfully, one young lady was actually a bit hesitant, and the other ladies that were there really kind of helped to reaffirm how safe it is and how important it is. So that was really nice. But getting back to that, even as I was happy for what happened and how it went, there's a big note on this, and what we've been reminded of in America again and again is that this is not justice. George Floyd did not have to die, and he shouldn't have died. And this does not bring him back. This isn't to say that we should not celebrate what happened. The verdict was unanimous, and it was the correct verdict. There is a reason, though, that we know so much about this trial and have been following every moment since George was murdered May 25th of last year. Trials like this, police officers being indicted and sitting in front of a jury, are so rare. And a conviction of even one of the charges is even rarer. Often the police are investigated, if one can call it that, because they work hand in hand with and in the same building as district attorneys, and ultimately cleared of any possible charges regardless of available video and evidence. An example, and this is a really, really heady and heavy subject, and it might I get into like police killing people, so feel free to mute it or whatever, because me writing this was not fun or easy. Um, I didn't know I'd have difficulty reading it like this, though. Breonna Taylor's murderers executed a search warrant. I put the word executed there on purpose. On her apartment after midnight, March 15th of last year, even though the warrant had been, quote, compromised by poor planning and reckless execution. They busted in the door of her apartment, causing her boyfriend, who said on the 911 call, someone kicked in the door and shot my girlfriend, to attempt, in his case, to defend their home by firing his weapon at the intruders. The police then fired their weapons, including Officer Brett Hankinson, who fired 10 rounds blindly into their apartment, hitting Breonna in the chest 5 times and killing her. Even though their search warrant clearly stated they were to, quote, knock and announce themselves, there is no evidence they did this. The only witness who stated they did provided contradictory statements. The officers, who had directed an ambulance stationed nearby as per protocol to leave the area, did not mention when the medical team arrived back on the scene to go and care for Breonna Taylor, instead directing them to help an officer who had been shot in the thigh. Despite all of this, none of the officers was charged in her death. Only Hankinson was indicted by a grand jury for wanton endangerment of the neighbors. They sure were fired, though. So, you know, yay, I guess. In December, Columbus, Ohio SWAT officer Jason Meade shot and killed Casey Goodson Jr. by shooting him in the back 3 times as Goodson attempted to enter his grandmother's home. This happened, as multiple witnesses have confirmed, as Goodson was returning from the dentist with Subway sandwiches for his family in one hand and his mask in the other. Meade said that he saw Goodson, who, again, he shot in the back 3 times, even though there was no fear for his life, driving down the street and waving his gun in the air. The gun he legally owned. But this is corroborated by nobody. No witnesses have corroborated this at all. In fact, when he was shot, he fell into his grandmother's kitchen. One main reason that there's no corroboration for anybody here is because the sheriff's officers there aren't required to wear body cameras. Crazy! Just nuts how that is, you know? Apologize for the ableist language, I'm sorry. But of course, that's actually not the end of this story, and because it never fucking is. Meade murdered him. Sorry, it's the wrong one. Either way, let me just read this because it gets better. Murdered Goodson Jr. before identifying him as a person of interest. And here's a fucking shocker. He wasn't the person of interest at all. It would have been difficult for Officer Meade to know that because he didn't even see his face. Now, this isn't the first time that Meade was involved with some bullshit like this. Some murdery shit. Some straight up motherfucking murder execution shit. Most notoriously, and this is not even the beginning of his putrid track record as a fucking cop, he was involved in a standoff which 2 men were firing at the officers from inside of a home and they were killed. According to the official report from the sheriff's office, when Meade and 2 other officers entered the home, they found David Arthur, one of the 2 men, sitting against the wall, quote, gasping for air. He opened his eyes and instantly leveled his pistol and pointed it directly at Deputy Meade. Meade and the 2 officers shot and killed him. The coroner said Arthur had killed himself. His death was ruled as suicide. But they shot and killed him. That's what they said. By firing 6 shots to his face and neck, and 3 into his chest. The chest of a man who was already dead. They didn't even, no court, no trial. A bit more on Meade, though, in case anybody was wondering why on this channel we might be talking about somebody like this and getting like kind of riled up about this, right? It's it's because he's a pastor of a church, Rosedale Free Will Baptist Church, who had, quote, used his faith to justify law enforcement's use of force. While preaching back in 2018, he said that his job is to, quote, hunt people down, and that he enjoys, quote, throwing the first punch because I learned long ago I got to throw the first punch, and I learned long ago why I'm justified in throwing the first punch. Don't look up here like police brutality. People I hit, you wish you could hit. Trust me. Let's talk about some fucking killology real quick, which is still a thing. Oh yeah, and here's a fucking surprise. Look, his church supports him. Of course they do. Oh, by the way, he hasn't been charged with anything yet. It's December. You know, like, whatever. There are so many other names. So many other cops not held accountable for murdering black people. Whether the black person is armed or not is not important. Whether that person has ever committed a crime, which, by the way, Goodson Jr. had never committed a crime. He had a license to carry his gun. We don't know about them. We don't hear about them. But there's so many. I had like a lot planned for this show, and I'm so mad. Like, there was actually some like really good stuff that I had, and I'm just like, I don't, there's like a feminist movement inside of Christianity. Did you know that? And it's like doing really well. No matter what, like, white men want. But I'm going to try to do this because there is really good stuff. Beth Allison Barr. She wrote a book. Now, as far as I know, no relation to Roseanne, which was something I probably should have written into the script. I just thought about it, though. She wrote a book. It's entitled The Making of Biblical Womanhood, How the Subjugation of Women Became Gospel Truth. And she's, which, by the way, the book released yesterday. She's been receiving some backlash from some folks, which, I mean, you already know, it's like, old white dudes. That's just the way it goes. You already knew I was going to say that, so come on. The book addresses what's known as complementarianism, which, quote, argues women and men have been divinely ordained, distinct gender roles that are not interchangeable. Women are divinely ordained to follow male headship and to be primarily focused on domestic tasks of family and home. Barr said, fuck that. She actually uses scripture to rail against this and says, quote, "It's time for the Christian patriarchy to end." I agree. I mean, the Biblical Council of Manhood and Womanhood doesn't agree. That has got to be like the worst name. You know, because, come on. I actually go through and I read these things. I read them and I read the comments. And the best one that I saw is by this guy named Rick. He said, "Wow, just wow. The errors in this article are almost too many to count. So let's just take one line. The author claims that in the Bible, women have leadership roles. Quote, women are teachers, deacons, apostles, and house church leaders. He says there is zero evidence that Jesus called any women to be apostles, nor is there any evidence that the church appointed women to be teachers or house church leaders, whatever the author means by that. In the ancient church, women were, of course, deacons, but as the name itself implies, that is a serving role, not a leadership role." All right, Doug, Rick, way to mansplain to a woman who wrote a book about what the Bible actually says about women's role in the church. Good job there, Rick. I noticed that you didn't reference Romans 16:1 or 16:7, 1 Corinthians 11:5, Galatians 3:28, or 1 Corinthians 11:27 to 30. Right? Seems like I have them. You know what I mean? Like I have them. I got them printed out for you if you want. Like I feel like that's one of them. All right? Says something. I can't read it from here. All right? Galatians 3:28. That's important. 2 Timothy. I'm gonna get to that. You were referencing this one, I imagine, right here, where it does indeed say, "Let a woman learn quietly and with all submissiveness. Do not permit a woman to teach or to exercise authority over a man. Rather, she is to remain quiet. For Adam was formed first and then Eve, and Adam was not deceived, but the woman was deceived and became a transgressor. Yet she will be saved through childbearing, if they continue in faith and love and holiness with self-control." I will tell you this, it sure does sound right here like Paul is saying women are subservient and should sit down and shut the fuck up. It's even echoed in 1 Corinthians 14, 34 to 35. Is that the next one? There it is. Good. Hey, look at me doing stuff right. It says this, "The women shall keep silent in churches, for they are not permitted to speak, but should be in submission, as the law also says. If there is anything they desire to learn, let them ask their husbands at home, for it is shameful for a woman to speak in church." Seems pretty like open and honest, open and shut, honesty here. That's Paul is telling women to stay mute, you non-penis havers. But even so, I'm perplexed, as it were. I'm perplexed. Because Paul had already said multiple times that women could speak aloud while praying and even prophesying in church. He even said it just 3 chapters prior in 1 Corinthians 11. Is that one right here? Nope, that's not the one. Okay, I figured that I had it, but I don't, so whatever. I'll get to that one in a second. So if he wrote about this, that women could do all of these things in 1 Corinthians 11, why would he change his mind 3 chapters later? Yeah, 3. That seems a bit confusing, especially for somebody like Paul, who wrote a lot of the things and he shared the same message over and over again. Even more confusing to me, why up to chapter 11, verse 34, was he speaking about prophecy? Before taking a break from prophecy, writing this, and then restarting again in verse 37. Why would he do that? That's not something that Paul would write. And I've got to say, the verses in 1 Corinthians and 1 Timothy sure do look a lot alike. They just like, they do. Let me take a look, see. Here's 1 Timothy again. "Let a woman learn in silence With full submission, I permit no woman to teach or to have authority over a man. She is to keep silent. For Adam was formed first, and then Eve, and Adam was not deceived, but the woman was deceived and became a transgressor. Look again. Oops, wrong one. I went backward again. Darn it. There it is. Women should be silent in church, for they're not permitted to speak, but should be subordinate, as the law also says. If there's anything they desire, let them ask their husbands at home, for it is shameful for a woman to speak in church. These are identical in what they're saying. Even the word usage. And that is a bit interesting. Isn't it, Rick? Ricky. Richard. If your name's actually Rick, I'm sorry. I hate when people call me Nate. It is. And I wonder why. Why is that so interesting? What? Now, I mean, I don't actually wonder, because I'm being sarcastic. Like, normally. But the reason why is because Paul didn't write 1 Timothy. In case you're unaware of that, Paul didn't write 1 Timothy. It came after 60 or 65 CE, whenever Paul, got all murdered up in Rome. Not by that fire guy. And then so whoever wrote this inserted this into 1 Corinthians later on. This is some sexist ass bullshit that Paul didn't believe. Now, mind you, Paul very much was like, women cover your heads and things like that. He goes through that stuff. You can read it in Romans. You can read it in 1st and 2nd Corinthians, and Galatians as well, and Philippians. He definitely says those things, but he never says women should sit down and shut up. He never actually says that, except Rahur. It's the only place. They inserted that long after Paul had died. And you would know that had you learned lexicography. And others who should also learn lexicography so as to understand what people in antiquity were actually writing, especially if they never spoke about a certain group of people the way you claim they did. Just saying. Moving on. Rick. See, look at that. You have women that are in like the Christian church that are, and this is actually not unique. That I really like to see this, because women in the Christian church are very much pushing for away from this. She actually, the days of patriarchy are over, she said. And I was like, yo, what's up? That is really amazing. And I love to see that. Is it rare? Kinda. But the fact that it exists at all matters. Now let's get into something here. You may have heard something about some organization that did some stuff this week. And this is actually one of like my favorite things so far, because the atheist community, the online atheist dude bros, I have more people that have followed me that have been Christians over the course of the past 2 weeks because of you. And so I kind of appreciate that, because I have more in common right now with Christians on the internet than I do you. And that's very interesting. Now, it is, of course, because, you're transphobic as fuck, homophobic, you're nationalists, this stuff on the internet, 70 to 75% of atheists are liberal, which, by the way, I posted that information. If anybody wants to see that, it's on the internet. Just Google Pew Research atheist politics, and you'll see it on there. You'll see it. It's there. Just do the one finger thing. There it is. But what happened, in case you're completely unaware, is this organization known as the American Humanist Association somehow got their little humanist hands on a tweet by one Richard Dawkins. That guy. And he said some pretty transphobic shit. But beyond that, he also said the people didn't really catch this one. It's pretty fucking racist too, and it was, and we're gonna go over something in a second. But you likely know what I'm talking about, and if not, I can bring it up. I didn't get a slide of it, anyways. So they took his 1996, right? 96, 98, who the fuck cares? Humanist of the Year award away from him. They did. It was, and in my opinion, rightfully so. And now the internet atheist dude bros, which I'm just going to guess is like, I don't know, all of white toxic masculinity on the internet. Like, I don't know, all of you, stop it. Anyways, came out and said, rar, dogma, and all this shit going on. They came at me too, which is kind of funny because, yeah, don't do that. Don't come for me. I'm just going to troll you into fucking oblivion. All right? You call me stupid, all I'm going to do from then on out is I'm just going to say, I could not possibly create a response to you that is even cogently coherent, because I can't match your intelligence level, because I may as well not even consider typing on a computer. How do I even know what letters and words are? Don't call people stupid. But very much, it's funny here because the people that have been saying this is a good thing are sure, yeah, liberal atheists, which, yeah, y'all out there, I know, there's probably like a bunch of you, etc. But also a lot of Christians have said, yeah, this dude should not say transphobic bullshit, which is a bit surprising to me. Because if there's any organization of people that have been, let's just say, not in favor of equal rights and stuff, it has been, white fundamentalist evangelicals, the far white. And yet, many of them have come and been like, yo, y'all being some assholes, you being transphobic and homophobic and stuff. And it's actually been interesting because they'll actually, I've seen a couple of different times where conservative, otherwise, and there of course are liberal Christians who have shared the press release, not only from the American Humanist Association, but from an organization that I've currently got a lot of problems with, the American Atheists. The American Atheists have come out in support of this. And Allison Gill is I think the vice president. Allison Gill is a trans woman, is the vice president of American Atheists. And by the way, Maya and Susan, thank you for the kind words. And she wrote a press release as well that's saying, yo, what you said is demeaning and fucking stop it. And also, basically, my door is open if you want to sit down and actually learn something instead of asserting things. Now, what has happened, and by the way, good for them, for American Atheists doing that. You still got a book that you published that you're still on your website that I'm not, but anyways, it's a little bit, I mean, in my opinion, that book is just a little bit intellectually bankrupt, but I mean, let me just consider this. The internet atheists, dude bros, and by the way, for the longest time, I didn't catch on to whenever somebody would say, YT people, I would always think YouTube people. No, it's short for white. I figured it out. Good, go me. These, I'm just saying, it's the people that have been responding to this have not. I mean, they just looks like they kind of look like me. Just saying. And they've been very much caught on to this. And they've just been the transphobia thing. Well, show where it's transphobic. And I'm gonna redefine transphobia. And I'm gonna redefine homophobia. And he's just asking a question. It's interesting because that's something Richard Dawkins has done a lot of times. He just asks questions. And it's very funny that he does that. That he just asks questions. Because that's a nice little out. It's a nice little out that you're just asking a question or about something. Whenever you talk about, I don't know, that it's immoral if your fetus has Downs to do anything other than abort it, that it's immoral. Wait, are you sure? And it's immoral to ask questions about why it would be bad for fucking eugenics to happen. It's a lot of questions here by this person. Like, it's almost like he has a history of being a bigoted piece of shit. It's crazy. It's like that time where he called a Muslim woman Muslima. You know, when he was talking to her, and whenever he brought up the fact, he's like, oh, all these things, and yawn, genital mutilation, and all of that shit, right? Oh, he actually said that to a Muslim woman who he did not even reference her by name, but rather made up a a bigoted fucking name for her. And then, of course, he also implied, very actually explicitly implied, that Muslims just aren't very intelligent. And said, after, of course, he said that being part of a religion is simply a license to be organized stupidity, which, good job there. And by the way, I know that the internet atheist dude bros actually agree with him in all of this stuff. I know that. This is not surprising to me. I know y'all a bunch of pieces of shit. Yes, the show me where, like as if they're ever going to accept. No matter what you show them. It is interesting, though, whenever you say that over 70% of atheists identify as liberal, and they're like, oh, yeah, where's it at? Where's that information? Then you post like 40 links, and then they never get back to you. It's crazy that happens. I don't know. It's almost like you can't deny objective reality. It's almost like that's the thing you say to people that are Christians, because y'all a bunch of toxic dicks, and you say that, but then it comes around, and you're like, oh my god, objective reality doesn't fit my current fucking worldview, and therefore I am going to just follow whatever I want, because my preconceived reality is the one that's important. You know? It's the thing. But yeah, and yes, he said these things out loud. By the way, David Dennett has come to his defense, which is actually not something that's surprising, right? The horsemen of the atheist apocalypse or something. I don't know. What is it? God, Sam Harris is shitty too. Sam Harris is a piece of shit who says that it's the black culture that's keeping you down if you're black. It's your culture. It's nothing else. There's no such thing as systemic racism. I don't know. You know, and he also, when he implied that Muslims are just not very intelligent, what he said is this college, and I forget, it's a Christian college, a private Christian school, has 32 Nobel Prize winners, and yet there are no Muslims. Why not? There's plenty of them. They boast all these big numbers. Why don't they have any Nobel Prizes? Daniel Dennett, whatever. My apologies, David, Daniel. I don't know. He said, why don't you have any? There's 32 from this university. Do you know who also doesn't have 32? Women. Anybody from China. No Chinese people have 32 Nobel Prizes. There aren't 32 Chinese people with Nobel Prizes. Buddhists and Hindus don't have 32. And yet he chose to single out Muslims for some reason. I don't know why. But as noted by the American Humanist Association, he has a history of this. This is not brand new stuff that he's doing, or he's just like, let me walk it back, when he said that, some rape is just, it's just worse than other forms of rape. Some types of rape that are apparently, and then if a woman is raped while she is drunk, then her testimony should not even be admitted into court. Basic super duper feminist things, which he defines himself as a feminist. Those are the kinds of things feminists say. Man. And then there's this thing that I've been talking about recently, and it's called dogmatism. If you're unaware of what that is, it's when you take your worldview and you hold on to it. And this is the only one that's right. This makes sense because this is like, the far right. And so, and it's, by the way, it's common in fundamentalist evangelical communities, obviously. And we actually talk about that. And many atheists that are American were once fundamentalist evangelicals. And this makes sense to me as to the reason that they're doing this now and holding on to these things so fervently and not being willing to let them go. They see Richard Dawkins, and they see somebody like Richard Carrier, and they see, is it Daniel? Yeah, Daniel Dennett, and they see Sam Harris, and they see these people who wrote these books that are just lambasting religion, just one and two and one, and they feel like they feel as though these are the people that help them out of these things. And by the way, there is absolutely abuse that happens in fundamentalist evangelical communities. Yes, there is abuse that happens in every religion. Absolutely. And we know that. And we should attack that on a regular basis. We should never forget that. Yes, but they turn and they come into this and they realize that somebody like Richard Dawkins or Lawrence Krauss or Michael Shermer, they're being attacked when they have, in this case, not Dawkins, but in the case of Lawrence Krauss and Richard Carrier and Michael Shermer, accused multiple times, credibly, of sexual harassment and or sexual assault. And they have credible stuff. David Silverman, credible. And yet, what do you see? This same dogmatism exists. The dogmatism that we see in fundamentalist evangelical groups exists in this part of atheism as well. Here's an example. If I can get it to work, that'd be just fabulous. Maybe I can just do that. There it is. This is Todd Stifle? Is that, I don't know. I mean, I don't want to mess up his name, but he wrote on this is Facebook, right? That's still what Facebook looked like. I don't know. I haven't had one in a while. Let me see here. Let me grab this photo so I can actually see what it says. He says this. I'm going to read the whole fucking thing. He says, I'm going to look over here, so I'm looking at the other computer screen. He says, to American Humanist Association and its affiliates, which I did not know there were any of those, but for your budgeting purposes, I wanted you to know that none of your organizations will be receiving money from me or my foundation going forward. AHA, Free Thought Equity Fund Center, and Center for Free Thought Equality have all been eliminated from my funding and that of my foundation. You have embarrassed the entire secular movement with your extremely public withdrawal of the 1996 Humanist of the Year Award. You have failed to live up to the values of free inquiry by figuratively burning a heretic for their dissent from dogma. While Richard Dawkins' tweet was insensitive, thank you for admitting the fucking obvious! Taking so much time and energy to tear down an ally is completely counterproductive. You could have handled the situation without literally causing an international news story that hurts Richard's work and that of his foundation. While I admire your effort to help transgender people, your methods are undermining causes we both support. Now, he's not done yet. He's not done yet. He goes on into this. That was interesting what just happened there. That my computer just get help with File Explorer. Why would I want that? My computer just pulled something on my screen. I was like, what? But he come over here. Let me just grab this again. He says this, while I agree Richard certainly could have done a better job with his tweet. He is human and imperfect. Our movement is weak because groups like yours cancel someone they agree with 99% of the time, while our opponents are much better able to forgive sin. See? I mean, the Christians in my mentions. There was an opportunity to educate, disagree, and criticize. This is not a situation where someone should be erased from history. You know, like Confederate, the idea that the Confederacy is going to be removed from history. If we just get rid of those statues, where apparently now in Florida, it is a felony to have those torn down. Okay, man, oh man, you know, don't have history books. Finally, your entire argument against Dawkins is based on the concept that trans-ethnic people are frauds. Who the hell are you to judge trans-ethnic people in this way? I have a trans-ethnic person in my family. I don't understand it, but I'm not going to attack them for it. I'm utterly amazed by your hypocrisy of supporting transgender people while hating on trans-ethnic people. Where is your humanist compassion for these people? Ironically, 25 years from now, I can easily imagine trans-ethnic people as accepted and loved by humanists while the AHA board erases all of you for your attacks on them. Cancel culture works two ways. I'm canceling my support of you. Sincerely, Todd Stifle? Again. He goes on, by the way, one more thing here, and he says, and I'm going to get back to something he said in a moment. He says, PPPS. I guess he wrote a lot that I didn't get to. To those who say I am not an ally of the trans community, ellipses, you can all eat a big bag of poo-poo. All right. I criticize Richard's tweet and certainly didn't attack trans people. I criticize the cancel culture overreaction. I've been nothing but supportive of trans people in person and financially supported many LGBTQ causes. I can be an ally and not agree with you on everything. I have trans friends. There's trans people in my family. I can't possibly be transphobic. It's impossible. I'll go back to something here. He says in this right here, he brings up something, and you may not know what he did, but he replaced trans person with trans ethnic, as if, because he's thinking of Rachel Dolezal, right? You know, the white person who lied about her ethnicity and said that she was black. And when I think it was in Washington, wasn't it, where she literally was like in leadership at the NAACP up there, I think. If I got a couple of those details wrong, I apologize. My memory is a bit fuzzy on that. But the fact that matters is that he's saying that that's trans ethnic. That's what that means. It's trans ethnic. It's a choice. You can choose. I don't understand, but you can choose your race, your ethnicity. That's not what trans ethnic means. Trans ethnic is very much defined as a child not being the same race as the people who adopt them. That is what trans ethnic is. I know that people like this fucking piece of shit right here try to co-opt these things. It's something that white people, we got a bit of a history of doing that. We got just like a little bit of a history of physically canceling people, and by that I mean exterminating people. It's just something that we have done more than a few times, and have taken the word and just say it enough, right? And it changes the meaning, apparently. That's not what it means. You don't get to choose your race, your ethnicity. Just like you can't choose who you love. You cannot do that. And for pieces of shit like this to co-opt this and to take it, that is actually what upsets me most about this. It does. Because is there anything that we won't take as white people? Is there just anything that is just off limits for us? That we just won't, as the majority, the powerful people, in the country, is there anything that is just off limits? Apparently fucking not. We have no shame. I'm happy it was taken away from him. He fucking doesn't deserve it. He doesn't deserve a humanist. Even if you're like, well, some people might view this as transphobic. Some people might view this as Islamophobic. Okay, cool. If some people can, that means it's not something a humanist would say. The answer I gave to somebody the other night was this: if they want to know what could be considered transphobic, I said, I tell you what, it's not their job to do this. Just like it's not the job of Black Americans to inform me and educate me on the history of racism in the country. Now, it's my job to learn about it, and then to accept it, which, by the way, that wasn't easy. Susan can tell you about that. I would not be who I am right now without her helping me. And at one point, literally saying to me, "You're doing a white knight thing." That's the nicest thing that I think she could have said. But in this instance, I said, if there is and by the way, I absolutely was. If there is a trans person who is willing to talk to you, and to tell you, ask them and listen to them. That's how you know. And your response to me isn't, "I have, and they haven't given me anything." Because then, no, you haven't, and I know you haven't, and you're lying. Do you know why I'm more of a fan of Christians this week? Let me, I'm proud to call you on your bullshit. Let me go through a few things. And they're not going to be up on the screen, and I'm really sorry about that. I have been, today has been, it's been very difficult. I almost didn't do the show tonight, and I know that it's, we're actually only at 48 minutes. I thought that it was further along than that. But I'm going to go through these things because this week, and actually in recent weeks as well, Christians have been making me really, really, really happy. At the same time that atheists, I know that I've become more critical of people that are asshole atheists anyway, but that's because, you gotta police your own. I mean, I'm an agnostic. I mean, anyways. But this is actually some really good stuff. Actually, I think I can probably add a source right here, and I could just say, let me just look at the screen or whatever. Sure. Why don't I just do that while I'm getting that? Was it display capture? I think so. I mean, I guess I'll figure it out, huh? Add source, and I can make it. Really, I can't make any of those? And that's some nonsense. Okay, fine. Do this. Whatever, I don't care. I'll do this, and I'll bring it up here. Boom. That one. Right? Oh, no. Oh, shoot. Bring it over here. Oh, how come I can't do that? I can't do a display capture? This is some nonsense. Anyways. That was me. Thank you, Maya. But here's some of the things that have made me very, 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 very... I've given a lot of respect this week. This came out today. Faith leaders praise Derek Chauvin's guilty verdicts, and they acknowledge the work ahead. Here's some of the quotes from religious leaders. I remember I said this yesterday. I said, I need to hear, especially from white religious leaders that have some following. So Jamar Tisby, who's the author of How to Fight Racism, Courageous Christianity, and the Journey Toward Racial Justice, is a book that we own. Says this verdict will not bring George Floyd back, and we have yet to hear the actual sentencing, but for the moment, at least the blatant disregard for black life did not get exacerbated by yet another failure of the courts. And at the end of it, he says, for now, though, I hope we as a people can do what George Floyd was not allowed to do, breathe. The Reverend Barbara Williams Skinner, who is the National African American Clergy Network, went on to say much of the same. The policing system is still on trial and must be radically transformed so that Black Lives Matter and then indeed all lives will matter. Latino lives, Asian, indigenous lives, and white lives. We continue to pray for every black and brown mother whose unarmed son or daughter was killed by the police and paid no price. The Reverend Jim Winkler, if I remember correctly, he's a white guy. I was able to see with my own eyes that Derek Chauvin was guilty of killing George Floyd, and so too did the members of the jury. I pray this verdict will help advance the cause of racial justice, even though we still have a long way to go. I ain't gonna read what T.D. Jakes said, because fuck that dude. Farhana Kara, who's executive director, and I apologize if I mispronounce the name, of Muslim Advocates, said the whole world saw George Floyd beg for breath for his mother and finally for mercy before dying. As Chauvin's knee was on his neck. The guilty verdict is a long overdue measure of justice for the Floyd family. Further, we must all take drastic, immediate action to overhaul the law enforcement and justice systems that have allowed this violence to continue. Reverend Samuel Rodriguez, who's the president of the National Hispanic Christian Leadership Conference, echoes that. The blind eye of justice guiding our legislators and judges. But the remedy for the soul of America is empathy, understanding, and love of one's neighbor. Rabbi Jonah Dov-Pesner, director of Religious Action Center of Reform Judaism, said much the same. Senator Raphael Warnock, the pastor of Ebenezer Baptist Church in Atlanta. Bishop John Stowe, another white guy. This verdict respects both the rule of law and what the whole world watched on video. More importantly, it affirms that which has been shouted on our streets for nearly a year: George Floyd's life matters, Black lives matter. Let us pray that a precedent has been set that will allow people of color to know that their lives are to be protected by law enforcement and that there will be consequences when they are not. The only thing I have to say to you, Bishop Stowe, is that it's been a lot longer than that. Been in the streets for a lot longer than that. Been pushing for their lives to matter for a lot longer than that. The Reverend Walter Kim, the president of the National Association of Evangelicals. While this verdict cannot bring him back, we pray that it enables his family and our country to take one step further on the whole long and hard journey toward racial, true justice, and lasting peace. Russell Moore. Thanks. He's a white guy. He's the president of the Southern Baptist Convention's Ethics and Religious Liberty Commission. He said, "Great for justice," rendered in Minneapolis. He has received on his social media a lot of backlash. So I respect and appreciate the stand that he is taking. There's Americans United for Separation of Church and State, FFRF, Director of American Friends, the Quakers, service committees, the Executive Director of Religions for Peace USA, Episcopal Bishop of Washington, the Evangelical Covenant Church, the Dean of Yale Divinity School, the Council of American Islamic Relations. These are all religious organizations. They are diverse. They are diverse in their religion, they are diverse in their sex and in their gender, and they are diverse in their race. And I am proud of them. I really am. Is it enough? No, it's not. Because, again, not enough white people on there. There's a fuck ton more white pastors in this country than anybody else. But the fact that it's on there, it's just nice to see. Especially because of the vilification that Christians, Muslims, and people of other religions and other faiths receive. They do. And so to see that matters. Um, the Vatican, this is actually of April 19th, the Vatican said that this is what will happen. The Vatican said God cannot bless sin. LGBTQ people are leaving Catholicism, as they should. 2 years ago, when we started this, we were talking about a group of Methodist students in Omaha, Nebraska, who were graduating, and they said that they would not graduate underneath the Methodist banner because they did not align themselves with the anti-LGBTQ stances of the Methodist, at least their side of the Methodist denomination. And they said they wouldn't. In this case, they're leaving Catholicism. He said, this is a guy who was an elder. His name is Diaz Sentian. I'm so sorry. He said, it took me, he's a gay man, this long to recognize that I can let go of anything that hurts me. He said he could no longer normalize being Catholic and gay, and added that he had become accustomed to the church's condemning narrative. Right? Yeah, you hear it so often that it just becomes, it's like a train horn, right? It's jarring at first, but then you just become accustomed to it, and it's just, it bludgeons you over the head until you just kind of accept it. And how many people go through extreme amounts of pain, some taking their own lives because of this type of stuff. So good for him, and also good for the people that are taking the stand. It doesn't mean they're atheists. Stop it. Let me see. In Florida, there is a sex discrimination suit in Florida. It's against a Florida church, and it tests what are known as ministerial exception rulings. So basically, a woman has sent a lawsuit alleging gender discrimination, which challenges what is known as ministerial exception. This comes from a young lady named Christy Leonard, who's working at the Gospel Crusade. And which it does international mission work, and there's a conference in Bradenton, Florida. What it does is it you have classes there at the Gospel Coalition, and then it also helps you they help people with international, going out and do like missions and stuff like that, which, just if you just go give them food and stuff and water. And she was fired, but she says it was not to do with her work ethic or her spiritual devotion, but rather rumors surrounding her sexuality and relationship with a coworker. And she said the firing felt as though God was throwing her away. And now she is suing the church, or the Gospel Crusade, claiming her termination was driven by discrimination based on her gender and presumptions about her sexual orientation. Said the church is disputed, but the case is one of several that could test the reach of the ministerial exceptions, which is a legal workaround that exempts faith groups from non-discrimination laws. She said that she was there a lot. She was there all the time, and she became close with a female colleague and basically best friends. And then the issue at hand is that there's a pastor named Phil Durstein. I don't know. He's what you would expect if you were to watch like a pastor online. You know what I mean? You would expect it. That's what he is. Basically, they brought her in and they asked her, and she said, "No, I don't know what you're talking about. I have no sexual orientation other than being like, a straight girl, straight lady." And they were like, "Yeah, it's cool. Fuck you. You're gone." And now she's suing them. They also fired the colleague. But then said, before they fired her, we're taking away your salary and we're going to make you hourly, and we are going to also forbid you from moving in with the person who we fired. It's just what Jesus would do, right? Well, she's suing them, and the U.S. Equal Opportunity Commission agrees with her, and they said they found probable cause that she had been discriminated against based on her gender, as well as the perception that she was involved. She filed her help in October 2019, and the legal fund, it's Time's Up Legal Fund, is helping her out. And that's pretty awesome. As I mentioned, women are the most important people in the in showing leadership, because they show leadership to our to the young people, and they show leadership in ways that I know that I, as a man, but also many other men, could not. If you don't believe me, ask Barack Obama. He said it. I guess unless you're a white conservative, then I don't know, listen to somebody else. But you're not going to, because it's super cool that that's happening. I'm just gonna go over a couple more here. I know that we're like right in an hour. Oh, there was a guy. His name is Ole Anthony. He, if you have ever heard or watched the documentary, it was on PBS that exposed Benny Hinn as a fraud. He was up there in Dallas, which is where Benny Hinn, I think it's in Grapevine, which is where he is. Ole Anthony was he's a Christian. He was the person that went up and recorded that, and really kind of brought the walls down around. And now that there was also an FBI investigation into tax evasion by Benny Hinn International Association, I guess, of fraudsters. I don't know. He passed away this past week, and he is another example of an amazing person in a religion which is so vilified by people that aren't of faith in this country. And so it's a great loss. But Seattle Pacific University, which is, I don't know, right up the road from us, a few hours up there, they are a private Christian school in Seattle, as one could imagine. And they actually, the faculty voted a no confidence on the board of directors because the school has a policy that they can discriminate. They do not allow for the hiring of or mentorship by LGBTQ plus people. And they had an opportunity the board of directors to overturn that, and they chose not to. And the faculty said, "Fuck you," and voted no confidence. And so this is another opportunity for us to see. It's another opportunity for progress there with the equality. We already know that it is law across the land that we have equal representation based on sex and gender and everything else, and yet they do what they can in this private Christian college to discriminate. And so I'm hoping to see that this ends with them rescinding that rule. By the way, speaking of something else that's really, really awesome, the first drag queen, who is certified as a candidate for United Methodist Ministry, Isaac, is, quote, speaking in a new way to new people. This is just great. Because it begins, I'm just gonna read the first like 2 sentences of the article, because this is great. A few things were different about Sunday's virtual service at Hope United Methodist Church in Bloomington, Illinois. For one, there were a few more wigs on the screen. And a bit more makeup. Penny Cost was the preacher, and they celebrated Drag Sunday on April 11th with a message by Ms. Penny Cost and music readings and prayer by other drag artists from Central Illinois and beyond, celebrating uplifting voices of drag artistry within the church. And of course, the Illinois Great Rivers Conference Vermilion River District Committee on ordained ministry. Are you serious? That's the name of your organization. You couldn't think of like anything else? But anyways, sorry, I just don't like the name of your organization. But they unanimously certified Hope Church's director of operations, Isaac Simmons, who goes by Miss Pentecost in drag, as a candidate for ministry in the United Methodist Church. He is 23 years old and is the first openly gay man to be certified within the Illinois Great Rivers Conference, and, as far as anybody can tell, the first drag queen certified in the United Methodist Church. He does say that it's mind-boggling that in 2021 I'm the first one, but it's still a great honor. And this is just such a great thing. I am overjoyed for Isaac, and I'm overjoyed for this progress that we're seeing. I told you today was going to be like this really positive show because there's so much really good stuff. You don't hear about this stuff. All you hear, and I respect Meta very much, but if you go to like Friendly Atheists and stuff, right? It's like all these, and I get the reasoning and stuff because it's, it's very, you get a lot more viewers and things like that. And Hamed also does a great job. But we are not broadcasting this stuff, which is so awesome. We are not amplifying this. I said the other day that, because I was retweeting a couple of pastors that I follow, the president, I think, of the Southern Baptist Convention is straight up, he preaches critical race theory. He says that we have a problem, white people in our country. He's still pro-life, and I get that. I understand the reasons for that he is. I don't agree with him, but he was voted as president, people even knowing this about him. He's like the wokest white dude pastor guy that I've seen yet, except for those other people that I follow on Twitter now, because I do not care that they post scripture on their timeline, on their wall, on whatever it is called, because so do I. But like, I followed Sean McDowell. I don't agree with everything Sean McDowell says, but some stuff that he put out there today, something that I was going to talk about on the show, was great. I said we need to do our best. We need to do our best to amplify voices like that. With communities, amplify those voices. And stop amplifying people like that Locke guy or whatever his name is. And these hate preachers. What does that do? What is the end game with that? You can't shame these people into obscurity. It will not work. Bringing somebody like Kent Hovind onto your channel or something, just so you can try to school him in a debate. He doesn't care about that. The more airtime you give him, the more audience he has. When you bring somebody like that on, it's not for you to debate. Rather, it's for him to take the time with your audience. Amplify these positive voices. Amplify the people who are really making change and are pushing for it and are receiving considerable pushback, but still doing it. What did Paul says that? He runs the race. It's not an easy race, but he runs the race. That's what these people are doing. They're seeing the progress that is necessary, the racial inequity, the inequity with gender and with sex and everything in this country. And they're saying it's wrong. We have to amplify things like this. Platform these things. Bring these people onto your channels. I'm not going to host a debate where you have neo-Nazis. What the fuck is wrong with you? You're giving neo-Nazis a platform? And don't tell me that it's good for us to, get their point of view. No, it's not. They're fucking Nazis. You don't give Nazis. They're Nazis. They're going to Nazi. That's what they do. They're fucking white supremacists. What are you looking for? So the Pope obviously is not like the best guy in the world, but there's a guy from Chile. His name is Juan Carlos Cruz. He is now sorry, uh, he is also a survivor of clerical sex abuse. Is Mr. Cruz. He is now serving on the Vatican Commission that advises the Pope on how to protect children from pedophile priests. That is the Catholic Church has been garbage. No worse than that, they've been complicit in everything and been and themselves guilty of not only sexual abuse of children, but covering it up, millions and millions of dollars into it, and moving priests around so that people don't know. But this person, he's a whistleblower, and he now is on that panel, and I can appreciate that. That's a good thing. I think the Pope is wrong about a lot of shit, but that is a good thing. And I really hope that there's actual change that happens. I want to. By the way, most Americans know Biden is Catholic. If you didn't know that, pretty much nobody has any idea that Kamala Harris is a Baptist. It's like 23% of people. Facebook now has a prayer post feature where if you write something that's like religious or you need some help or something like that, you can say that and you can ask people for prayers and they can respond with a click that they have prayed for you. I guess that's basically like praying in general because it doesn't actually fucking do anything. Like there's no action, was what I mean. I realize that praying matters to people of faith, but Maya is correct, by the way. Under 50% of Americans are going to church. And with that, a couple of weeks ago was Easter, right? And I'm going to play this video. And it's like 3 minutes long, or maybe a little over that. I don't know. I don't remember exactly. I love this video for so many reasons. And I'm going to play it all the way through. Because and I recommend that you listen to it in its totality. Because you're not going to agree with it. I know that, unless you're like hate watching me. Which then I guess, like and subscribe. But it's a great video, and I'm going to play this right now. And I'm going to sit back and drink, because I've already listened to this like 10 times today, and it's so good.
Welcome back. Hope you had a good Easter. You know, even in a decaying Christendom, there is something so heartening about Sunday service on Easter morn with the church pews packed, as they rarely are. And, oh, wait, no, sorry, my mistake. That was the old Easter, before the state rolled the stone in front of the church door. So the hosannas were decidedly muted yesterday. Singing remains forbidden in California churches. In Spain, they've taken the additional precaution of banning hymnals. In Greece, they've banned loudspeakers, just in case you're tempted to hold an outdoor service. But really, why not just cut to the chase? In Ireland, all in-person services are illegal. And like Father Hughes in Mullahoran, who said Mass to 40 congregants, you'll get a €500 fine if you're minded to try it. And Pastor Cronin at the Abundant Grace Church in Dublin was arrested mid-service. In one of posterity's little jests, an Irish Catholic is currently only free to practice his religion if he heads north across the border, where under the tyrannous British Protestant yoke, the churches are open, unlike down south. However, don't get carried away. What the state giveth, the state can take away. Here's British coppers in South London seizing the pulpit and closing down worship in mid-service.
It is Good Friday, and I appreciate you would like to worship, that this gathering is unlawful, so please may you leave the building now.
What's the proper response to that? Here's Pastor Arthur Pavlovsky in Calgary, Alberta.
Please get out. Get out of this property. Immediately get out. Okay. Get out of this property immediately. Out. I don't want to hear anything. Out of this property immediately. I don't want to hear a word. Out. Out. out of this property immediately until you come back with a warrant.
He called them Nazis and the Gestapo. Preach it, preacher man. And through the sheer power of his words, he drove the coppers down the stairs like Jesus throwing the money changers out of the temple. For it is written, my house shall be called the house of prayer, and ye are not going to make it a den of totalitarian goons. The only people committing a crime there were Her Majesty's miserable and unworthy Calgary Constabulary, who were in breach of Section 176 of the Canadian Criminal Code. Quote, everyone who willfully disturbs or interrupts an assemblage of persons met for religious worship is guilty of an offence punishable on summary conviction. That's a slam dunk, and that Canadian pastor should file a complaint with, the police. There is a tragic element to the diminished state of the Christian churches a year into this thing. If ever there were a huge opportunity for religious ministry, a world in which everything else is dead, movies, shows, sports, concerts, restaurants, all the noisy distractions of the secular consumerist life is surely it. Yet for the most part, starting with the social justice pontiff in the Vatican blaming COVID on climate change, the churches blew it. And saddest of all, an unchurched year has seen church membership in the US fall for the first time below 50% of Americans, which is a pity, because when the churches fall silent, the only religion left is the state.
Oh, man. Oh, I love that video so much. I really do. Here's the thing. Whenever I go like on a tirade ever, his name was what, Mark Stein, I think, or something like that. Whenever I go on a tirade ever again, I want him to do my tirade for me, because it's just, I just want him to. It's like, I think he called them like coppers or something, and I'm just like, and then like, everything he said was just so awesome. He's completely wrong about everything, and fuck that dude, right? Because I mean, as Maya accurately put out there, it's not like 3 million people are dead or anything. It's like, it's actually about 5 million now. But yeah, but this dude, man, I like that the police went there and they were like, "Yo, this is an unlawful assembly. Y'all motherfuckers need to leave." And the people are like, "Look, I realize that Jesus said that we need to listen to the government and people appointed over us, but fuck you, I'm not listening to you, government and people appointed over us, because that's not what Jesus would want. He would want me to congregate and die. That's what Jesus would want, right? He doesn't want any goddamn immigrants coming here, right? That's an anti-Jesus thing. I mean, that's, he don't, none of those. Also, black people can't have guns, right? But we get to congregate whenever we want to, and you're not going to take away my rights to congregate. And again, he did it in that amazing accent, which I want him to do all of my tirades from here on out. If he could do that, that'd be, oh my gosh. I wonder if he'd do it for free, because I don't like have any money or whatever. No, you're fine, Maya. I imagine that's what you meant, that it was an autocorrect or something, because I mean, obviously it's, I would consider 3 as well, because it's like the Trinity or whatever. But this this video is so good across so many different ways and stuff like that. Let me just grab this real quick. Says the anti-religion nanny states war
Welcome
on
back. Hope you had
Easter.
a good Easter. Even in a
Hey now. Sorry. I said don't you autoplay a gosh darn thing. Anyways, in a decaying Christendom, which recognition's important, because as was mentioned, fewer than 50%, he did mention this as well, fewer than 50% of Americans now attend religious services. Now, I don't know that I could necessarily look at this number and say that's probably true. There's a lot of variables from last year that we need to take into consideration, because it doesn't mean that more people are non-religious, because we actually know that's not necessarily the case, because the number of people that are atheist has jumped up like 0.2% or something, and so it doesn't mean they're actually losing that many losing that much as far as when it comes to congregants or believers. He said, before the state rolled the stone in front of the church door. Whoever wrote that, I don't know who it was, but that's, I mean, come on, it's colorful. It paints the image that you know what it is, because it's like, I mean, only the book of Matthew, but whatever, the other times the stone was already rolled away. It's almost as if you could still go to church regardless of, execution, because it wasn't going to happen to you, unlike Jesus or whatever, because, I mean, church is freedom in this country. Also, so is like guns. So, I mean, only if you're part of a well-regulated militia. Jesus Christ. Read Federalist 42. And in Ireland, all in-person services are illegal. And he said the unchurch has gone down. And he says, in one of posterity's little jests, an Irish Catholic is currently only free to practice his religion if he heads north across the border, where under the tyrannous British Protestant yoke, the churches are open, unlike down south. Beautiful. Just, I love it. I laughed at this. Like I said, I've watched this thing like 10 times today, and I'm probably going to watch it again. It's just so good. I mean, he's completely bigoted, and he's stoking fear and shit like that. He's not the same as that guy that, oh God, I don't remember who it was last night that was on the internet that we watched the video, and Susan and I literally, like, I don't know that we've ever together been more angry at a person. The person that said that black people, that black people are getting themselves killed to go viral, and so their family can get insurance money. She and I have been upset before. I don't know that we've ever been like in the same room that upset at a person. And like, wow, that was on television that somebody said that. And sorry, I turned my volume down a little bit. This is not like that. It's fear mongering, and it's playing to the base and all of that stuff. But I loved it. And also, be happy that you missed it, Maya. Oh my gosh. You can look it up though. Probably not difficult to find. A black guy was literally saying that black people want to go viral, so they're getting themselves killed because they want to, so they can go viral. To which Laura Ingraham responded with the BLM Marxist group, etc. nonsense. I don't even need to say anything about that because they don't listen. This is not that. It's a lot of I mean, the speaking to his own base and all that stuff. The stuff that you can expect from like Fox News. But again, the stuff that you would also expect from somebody on the left. Like this is pretty far right. But you go to something like Democracy Now! Or Mother Jones, or some of that other bullshit that's laced with language that is just like this, except for on the left. It's the same nonsense. This one is a little bit different, but when it comes to playing to the base, right? When I say the same nonsense, what I mean is that there's this, it creates unnecessary fucking emotion, right? Just report. Say what it's doing. You don't need to automatically play to your base. If what you are doing is good journalism, then people are going to read and watch your stuff. You don't need to put appeals to emotion in there and just appeal only to your base and say, Mitch McConnell's head explodes and all of this bullshit. Shut up. All right? I get it. I don't like him. I think he's a shitty person. I think this time is the only time in his life when he's minority leader that he's actually cared about minorities. Yes, I think that's true. I think that he is racist. I am certain that he is sexist. I know he is owned by multiple corporations, and he only says things to play to his base. I get that. But report on what happens. You know what I mean? Stop it. Marjorie Taylor Greene, though, I mean, she said Jewish space lasers. I feel like she's like kind of like open. You know, you're not like actually, you know, building like anything up or anything. You're just literally saying, yeah, she totally said this, and this isn't an email where I'm just quoting her. That kind of thing. That's a little different. So that was really cool, and I'm going to finish it today with another feminist thing because it's great. It is there is a book. Oh, he cares about his not his constituents, but the money he gets. There is a book by her name is Sarah Bessey. She wrote a book. She edited a book called A Rhythm of Prayer, a collection of meditations for renewal, and it recently is on the shelves at Target. And I have not seen it, but I go to Target like all the time because it's like right next door to my job, or like where I work or whatever. So I just go over there all the time and found some Jurassic Park Funkos the other day. Susan did, not me. But it's a best-selling book, and it's got some of the far right are not happy about it though. They call on Target to remove it from your shelves. Stop selling this book. You're can't. If we do that though, then we have to say the C word. The double C word. We'll get back to you on what words to use for what you should do, but you need to eliminate that book from your shelves. You know what I mean? It is a progressive. Sarah Bessey is a progressive Christian author, and it features a number of different types of prayers written by theologians, pastors, and authors from various Christian traditions. It's a bestseller in both the United States and Canada, and it's been out since February. I still haven't seen it. I'm going to need to go look for this book. The prayers in the book include a benediction by Bessey, a poem by Potawatomi Christian author and speaker Caitlin Curtis, a prayer based on a chicken soup recipe, so if you are around in the early 2000s, and that's from I am so sorry. I am not going to get your name right no matter what I say. It's spelled Osheta, and I realize I'm unwilling to go through and just say, this is how you say it. So, A Liturgy for Disability by author and disability advocate Stephanie Tate, no relation to Michael, and even blank pages for those times when it feels like there aren't words, which is really great. But the Christians out there, they're not having it with this book because there is one line that is in there, and it is the prayer of a weary black woman. Clinical psychologist Chaniqua Walker Barnes, and it begins. This is the greatest thing ever. It begins, "Dear God, please help me to hate white people." I have read a lot of like first line like hooks, like they tell you whenever you're first writing something to get a good hook. You're like, this is what you're gonna get in somebody. It's like does Nathaniel like more, does like Christians more today? That worked apparently because people mentioned it. But it is amazing what she wrote. And the backlash is a Virginia pastor posted a photo on the first page of of the first page of Walker Barnes's prayer that he said was sent to him by a member of his church who spotted the book at Target, which again, other people finding it at Target. I need to go and look and see what it is. I may have actually seen it, but then was like, I don't know. Said an elder and lead pastor at Life Community Church in Alexandria, Virginia, said, this kind of thinking is a direct insult of CRT and is completely anti-biblical. Okay. So what's critical race theory? You want to go into it? No, you don't, because you didn't actually put the reasoning or what critical race theory even is in your, is it a statement? Did you tweet? Yeah, you tweeted that. For some reason, you didn't add any of the definitional stuff that's really important. You know, it's, I don't know, it's almost like context matters here. Or explain how it clashes with the core beliefs of Southern Baptists. And several prominent black Southern Baptists have said, hey, we're leaving. And so they actually left the Southern Baptist Association because of the response to this by white people. Conservative writer Rod Dreher described the prayer as racist and blasphemous. What Walker Barnes and her progressive Christian allies represent is, let's be clear, the spirit of Antichrist. Man, this is like Antichrist Antifa. You know what I mean? It's just, honestly, it's my favorite organizations. It's blasphemous to call on God to make you hate white people, make you hate people at all, much less on the basis of race. We, as white people, have never... Can't finish the sentence. There's the and then this is important. She said on social media, this is the Walker Barnes who wrote this. She said she had written the prayer of a weary black woman after a white person she considered a friend called her in casual conversation the N-word. She said, I took my rage to God in prayer. I owned it. I was truthful to God about what I was struggling with, and I prayed for God to not let anger and hatred overwhelm me. While her own personal experiences and her family history, her grandfather fled sharecropping in South Carolina, have given her reason to hate white people, she tweeted, God has given her, quote, a different spirit, one that insists on looking for goodness and possibility, one that holds anger and hope together. In the prayer, she begins by asking God to help her, quote, at least want to hate white people, to stop her from, quote, striving to see the best in people, to be able to walk away from them and their sinfulness without trying to call them to repentance. But you have kept my love and my hope steadfast, even when they have trampled on it. Thus, in the spirits of Fanny and Ida and Polly and Ella and Septima and Coretta, I pray and I press on in love. She was called a racist term in casual conversation by a white woman. And thinking back to her family's heritage, her grandfather, thinking back and everything that she had gone on, she prayed to God to help her to hate white people because of the harm that white people have caused to her, to her family, to other black people in America, to anybody that is not white in the world. She wanted so badly, so I can just brush them off. But she knew that she can't do that. And I love that. Because if this amazing person who faces much more adversity than I will ever even consider knowing or even have an idea. I can never understand it. Can look and with her faith, press on, run the race, steadfast in love, forgiveness, and to help others and to help white people like myself to learn and to love us even through our transgressions, many of them deliberate. Yeah. That's the kind of person I want to be around. I don't want to be around somebody who's going to call me stupid just because I believe that the man Jesus existed. I don't want to be around people who defend transphobia. I don't want to be around people who on a regular basis denigrate others, denigrate the religious, demean them, use ableist terms. I don't want to be around those people. Now, to be honest and fair, of course, to fair and, as always, ship balanced, I don't want to be around the fundamentalist Christians that do the same. Those who speak against immigration, who speak against equal rights, who don't want to listen to what equality means and why it's not equity. I don't want to be around them either. But I do want to be around people like this. I do. And there's nothing wrong with that. She's a good person. I want to be around those pastors who preach these things because they're better people than what I've seen. I don't agree with them on everything, but there's love that I don't feel in a lot of places with a lot of people that I know. And I can respect that. And you should too. There's so much we have to work on. We have created, as a country and as a country full of white people, many issues. Oh, I froze, sorry. Many issues for others, purposefully, taking from reckless disregard for livelihood, for life. And we have caused pain. And it's something that we need to fix. We need to fix. It is our job. But there is also good and things to celebrate. And there is hope. And there is love. Forgiveness. We can't make strides forward if we're unwilling to work in partnership with those who we have disagreements with. It will never happen. How can we find equality and equity if we are unwilling to see that even though beliefs may differ when it comes to believing in a God or not, that we still push on to that goal? This went on a lot longer than I thought that it would, but there was so much. This past week has been a whirlwind of stuff, and I know that. And I know that as much as I feel for yesterday's verdict, I know that that people that I know, black communities and people of color in this country and around the world, feel differently than I do about it. And I can't understand because of who I am and where as far as like as a white man, but to listen to their words when they're willing to give them, to the words of people who are so vital, and the people who deserve to be alive and deserve every opportunity, not only to stay alive, but to prosper. It has been incredible to see people happy and hopeful, knowing that the one racist, murderous cop being finally convicted doesn't mean anything except for he's convicted. We saw that yesterday afternoon again. But that it meant that we have the opportunity to change. If we don't take advantage of it now, when are we gonna? So that's what I've got for you tonight. I had a deep dive about a former congressman that we talked about for college football. I had that kind of prepared, but this seemed more important. I thank all of you for being here for this hour and 42 minutes, 43 minutes. I love all of you very much. I know that Susan does too. She's in the other room. And somebody said you're ending it abruptly. I know I haven't. I have this idea to create an outro. I just haven't made it yet. I'm so sorry. I've been so busy and playing Marvel's Avengers on the PlayStation. Anyways, love each other. Please do your best.